Welcome to the Wisdom of Jacob's Ladder, episode number 20. That's right, 20 episodes. For those of you who are new to my channel, we love having you here. Make sure you hit that subscribe button to stay up to date to weekly interviews coming your way. For those of you who have been before, we love having you back. My guest on episode number 20 is Karen Noe, who is a renowned medium, intuitive, author, and she's going to be giving so much insights from her spiritual teachings. We're going to be talking a little bit about her connection with the spirit realm and the afterlife. So you don't want to miss my conversation with Karen Noe coming up next on the Wisdom Jacob's Ladder. Karen Noe, thank you for being my honored guest here on the Wisdom Jacob's Ladder. I've been a personal fan of yours, for several years. I know there's a lot that we have in common, which, my viewers will hear throughout our dialogue. But we're neighbors, New York, New Jersey. We're tri-state folks, and we're here to just connect, really have an uplifting dialogue and take a closer look at Karen Noe. I have to say, about a week or two ago, I was presenting at the Edgar Cayce center, which I know you have been, along with the Dyer kids, which we'll get into.
Yeah.
But I was staying in a house, and the top shelf of the house, right before our conversation, 2 weeks later, was We Consciousness, your amazing book. So I know the spirit realm has been getting us ready for this interview and really planting the seeds. But you've really made your mark. But tell us a little bit about Karen Noe, for those who don't know, a little about your work, what you do. And then I'd like to kind of take a closer look into the personal journey of Karen Noe. So please, the floor is yours.
Well, first of all, it's an honor to be on your show, and thank you for having me on. And yes, we do have a lot in common. I was watching you on YouTube, and I feel connected with you already. As for me, my journey, before I say anything, when I say I'm a psychic medium and author and all that, we're all psychic. And I believe my journey, my purpose is to empower people to do what I do. So it's not like, oh, Karen Noe can do this. We all can. And we get to that later. But I was always psychic. And when I was little, my father used to take me to the racetrack and I'd pick the winning horses for him. But now I'm an animal activist and I don't go to the track, but things like that. But about 30 years ago, I was going through a difficult time in my life. And I sat at the edge of my bed and I just yelled at God, the angels, and I said, am I going to be okay? And with that, I saw a light that came towards me from the other side of the room. And as it was coming towards me, I said, if you're not of God, please leave. And, 30 years later, I know we're all of God and all of that. But I meant, if you're not of the love and light, please leave. But it continued to come towards me and it eventually enveloped me. And at that time, I heard an audible voice that said, Lucia Lucina, Bella Lucia Lucina. And for those who don't know what it means, in Italian, it means light, beautiful little light. And right after that, I've learned, first, let's go back a little bit. I learned that was St. Francis of Assisi after subsequent meditation and so forth. And there's my animal connection and my connection with love and peace and all of that. But right after that experience, my psychic abilities were greatly enhanced. I would dream things before they happened. I would know things. And I started to receive messages from angels and deceased loved ones. And I didn't want to. I was the reluctant medium. I didn't want people to think I was not in my right mind. But the more I connected people with their deceased loved ones, and I don't even like to use that name deceased, because they're not, as you know, they're not in the physical body anymore. But when I connected them, their loved ones usually came through with things that only the living loved one would know. For example, when I first started doing this, I said, I really want to know. I have to know if this is really a message or just my subconscious, or am I making this up? So I started doing Reiki in the back of a hair salon. And I will never forget one of the first appointments I did. I was doing Reiki, which is energy healing, for those who don't know. You do Reiki as well, yes?
Yeah, we have a lot in common. I'm a fellow Reiki practitioner too.
And I do things a little bit differently while I'm in their energy field. I'm sure you do too. You feel loved ones, I feel their connection and so forth. And I'll never forget, I was working in the back of a hair salon. This is
Hmm.
27 years ago, something like that.
Hmm.
And somebody's loved one was coming through, Robert, and he said he died in a car accident, which is nothing. But then he showed me a kangaroo with boxing gloves punching the air. And in my mind, I'm like, I can't tell him that, her that. She's going to think I'm crazy. I can't say that.
Right.
He kept saying, show her, tell her, tell her, tell her. And eventually I gave in. I said, I'm just learning how to do this. I'm just learning. There's somebody here named Robert. He said he died in a car accident, but he's showing me a kangaroo with boxing gloves. And her eyes got so big and she screamed and she said, that's my friend Robert. He died in a car accident and he boxed kangaroos in Australia.
Wow.
So I said, okay, I guess that meant something. And there's no way I would have known that. And what happened was word caught on. And then those types of messages continued to come. And eventually I was booked a couple of years ahead of time. I didn't want to do this. And it's what I'm doing all these years later.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, hearing you talk, have you ever seen the movie The Hereafter with Matt Damon? I don't know if you've seen it.
No, I have
But,
not.
but it's a wonderful movie. But basically, it's about a reluctant psychic medium. And we had a couple weeks ago Alison Dubois on the show, who was actually, one of the consultants on that movie. But
Yeah.
what I'm finding is a lot of the legitimate mediums that I do interview, they're it's hard to a degree. They don't want the spotlight. They just want to like live what's quote unquote normal life, and it's something that could get in their way of their everyday living. I certainly have a lot of audience members, and I know you alluded to that we all have intuitive capabilities that's within us all. How can one really live their lives between the two worlds while connecting, very heavily to both and have a balance between the two, but not have one override the other where you're imbalanced? What are some of your tips and tools to create, equilibrium between the spiritual being having these human experiences with all this phenomenon occurring on,
Well, I've learned early on, this would happen all the time. I'd be going to sleep. I'd open my eyes and there'd be someone at my door, being a deceased loved one. And I just said, no more of this only when the intention is there. And I'll never forget right after that experience, they listen. They do. It stopped until, at that point, I remember in that point of time, there was a couple of missing individuals and the police were working. I was working with the police in one particular experience. Another one that was, at that time, my children were young and we were on the soccer field and it was a good friend of mine. Her nephew was missing and I felt him already, but I didn't want to tell her that he was deceased. I didn't want to be the one. And I said, sweetheart, when they find your body, let me know and I will call your mom immediately. So what happened was, and then I'll answer your question. I would say, well, only when the intention is there is the answer. But at that time, I was talking to my husband. Now we're not together anymore, but we're in a loving relationship. But we were talking and I said to him, oh, all of a sudden I felt this individual. I said, okay, I have to go. Somebody's coming through. And I called the mother. He was coming through. He said, call my mother now. And I called her and she said, how did you know? They just found his body. I said, I'll be right over there. What I'm trying to say is only when the intention is there. They don't want to bother us. They really don't. They just want to get through to their loved ones. They're very anxious to let them know that they're with them. And what I would tell everyone, and this is so important, this is probably the most important thing I'll say today, is that every one of you who are listening can do what I do. If you do something every single day for 27 years, you'd be doing it well too. And I always use the analogy, everybody can play the piano, but you have to have fingers. Some people can play scales, but other people can play great masterpieces. The same thing with connecting with loved ones. And what I would tell them to do is ask their loved one to come to them in a dream and to wake them up after the dream so they remember it, and to be patient and wait. And the dream should come when you least expect it. I would tell them to tell their loved ones to ask them to come to and give them without a doubt signs. I call them without a doubt signs. something that normally wouldn't happen. And we could use the whole hour to talk about that. But for example, it would be they love to come through as an animal, a bird, a ladybug, a dragonfly, a butterfly. But the animal would do something it normally wouldn't do, such as a bird landing on your shoulder or pecking at the window. If a car cuts you off, and look at the license plate, it might be a loved one's name, and so forth. The smells, you might smell your deceased loved one's perfume, cigar smoke, and so forth. There's so many. So you ask them to give you a sign, and then be patient and wait for that too.
So in other words, ask and you'll receive.
Yes.
In a way, which has been a lot of the crux of your whole transformation. You had this dark night of the soul, kind of like Neil Donald Walsh or Eckhart Tolle or any of the, transformative luminaries on the planet, and you just simply asked, or just cried for support. I mean, I know certainly working in the mental health field, I'm trying not to use a Jewish word. You know what I'm saying? When a word is so strong, sometimes use a Jewish word, which is sorrow or pain. But I see a lot of pain. I'm wondering, how could people find that similar, playbook that maybe you've had where you experienced that great deal of darkness and now you've transcended and transformed into this incredible light worker that you are today? I know you're very modest and humble, but at least for me as an observer, that's what I see. It's just amazing. So how could people transform a lot of their heartache and heaviness that they're going through, for the greater good? What are some steps?
The most important thing I would say is for them to focus on what they desire rather than what they don't want. In other words, don't focus on what is, focus upon what you want, focus upon solutions rather than the problems. Because if we dwell in what's wrong, then that energy gets stronger and stronger. It's a law of attraction. We're vibrational beings. Whatever we're thinking and feeling, we're creating more of in our lives. So if you're in the midst of something bad, so-called bad, easier said than done to, think of something you desire rather than what you're going through. But it really is helpful. Now, last weekend, a couple of days ago, I did a Reiki Master class. I teach Reiki Master. And I also do something in addition to that, in between breaks and stuff, we're doing energy healing, but also something I've learned. I'm writing my next book. Let's go back to that. And it's about creating on a higher level of consciousness, collectively. If we all raise our vibration to be more on par with the energy of who we really are, which is God, and each of us does that, we raise the vibration of the planet, we change the world. But what I was saying is I'm researching every single person who I'm trying to anyway, who talks about the law of attraction, and there are different ways of talking about it. And Rhonda Byrne, who wrote The Secret, I'm sure you're aware of.
Yes.
She wrote the latest book. It's called The Greatest Secret. And it's pretty much completely different than everything she talked about. The greatest secret is that you're already that. If you're experiencing something that you don't desire, to embrace, there's everything you think you wouldn't say when you're talking about the law of attraction. Focus on what you want rather than what you don't want. But when you're experiencing something negative, trauma, you have to allow that feeling to be heard inside of you. You quiet yourself, you close your eyes, and you say, okay, you don't want to stuff it down anymore. It's trying to give voice to what's happening. So you close your eyes and you embrace it. And in so doing, it goes away. And we did that this weekend. A couple of the women there were going through trauma. And I said, okay, lie down, we're doing Reiki. And as you're doing that, feel it. Don't stuff it down. Feel the emotion. Feel it, feel it, feel it. And then there were tears and so forth. Eventually, it was gone.
Wow.
When we acknowledge that feeling, it's trying to be heard. It actually dissipates. So it's really cool. And then also you could do tapping, emotional freedom technique.
EFT, all that. And I come from a very biblical family, hence my name Jacob. And I grew up Orthodox Jewish. But, if you look at the book of Genesis, it starts off in a way, and there was darkness, and God said, let there be light.
Right.
And so for us, when we're experiencing darkness, we have to learn how to, be that light. The other analogy is the eye in the hurricane. With the storms around us, we have to be that centerpiece of clarity, of calm, and not so much focus on the outside, but have the inner awareness. So that's beautiful. But yeah, it's really being God-like when
God-like.
we are that light.
Yeah. And if we raise our vibration so it's more on par with the energy of who we really are, we all have God within us,
Yes.
right? So it's just that we forgot who we were. And if we raise our vibration, be kinder, more forgiving, seeing through the eyes of the other person, and
Right.
so forth, you can remember who you are, and more, how do I say that? Better things will happen to you. I won't say use the word better, but kinder people will be in your vibration, and
Yeah.
so forth.
Yes. Yes. You just have to get out of your own way, which is a segue for you.
Yeah.
I have a question on a professional basis as a medium, and then we'll get into some of your books and other teachings. But I've watched a lot of your interviews, and I get so much every time from it. But you self-describe yourself as being shy or more of
Yeah.
the introverted type. And so I see you've been in Omega, some of the biggest stages, Hay House stuff.
Yeah.
As a therapist, I understand that the things that are most anxiety inducing are usually things that are jobs out of our control, air traffic controllers or toll booth attendees when they had them, jobs that are out of their control. And then public speaking and death, are also up there. So you do like the top things when you're up there. Like, how do you manage your human part when you could go up stage and you just have no idea what's going to come in from spirit? Like, how do you ground yourself into to let go and let God, so to speak, when you get up there in front of a big crowd?
I'm alive when I'm up there. I'm a completely different person because it's through me.
Mm.
And I allow everything to happen. And that's when I'm very relaxed. It's very bizarre. And I am, if I'm in a party or something, I'm very shy. I feel everybody's energy. I'm an empath. But when it's not, it's really not about me. It's empowering people and teaching people how to do what I do. It's really easy for me. Now, if I was on stage, and I don't do that, what do you call it? The mediumship on stage. I don't do
Mm.
that. I won't do
I
that
see.
because I don't know what's going to happen. And it's like you said, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know who's going to come through.
Right.
So I teach people to do that. And then we break up into groups of two, the whole auditorium, whoever's there, and they try to give messages to each other.
Mm.
So that part I don't do. It's scary. It's really scary because even when people come to see me, and I was saying a few minutes ago that I'm booked a couple of years ahead of time. And I've been doing this for many years, and I obviously am doing something right, but going up on stage, you don't know what's going to happen. And most of the time it does. But I teach people how to empower themselves. I teach people how to raise their vibration, teach people to look for the signs. I teach people how to connect, how to change the world and so forth. Yeah. So it's not about me. That's why
Right.
it's easy to get up there and do that.
I think what we perceive as our greatest weakness lies our deepest calling and strength too. And
Yes.
yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
I wanted to entertain the luminary around us in the room. I don't want to say elephant because that would be insulting, but
Right.
one of the biggest luminaries of our time, someone that we both have a powerful connection to in many ways. But I wanted to just discuss your connection with Dr. Wayne Dyer, because from what I gathered, I thought in my head, oh, Karen went way back with Wayne. They knew each other, everything like that. And then I started hearing your interviews, and
Oh,
you
yeah.
did not know him. So
Oh,
I just wanted to hear a little bit about what you're comfortable in talking, because he is my big number one teacher of this life, I will say. I'll be on record. He is my guy. But I
yes.
wanted to just hear a little of your connection with him, and talk about that, because I was reading The Knowing, and that's how I found
Yeah.
Karen Noe, not
Oh,
knowing, but Noe,
yeah. Yeah.
That's how I heard about you. But yeah.
So I was a huge fan of his, and I felt the same way that you do about him. And after I heard that he passed, I didn't think the world was going to be the same again. I was
Mm.
devastated. If you ask my family, I was making dinner, and I found out, and I was crying. I didn't know what I could do. I had a few weeks earlier, I had interviewed Serena Dyer, which is one of his 8 children,
Yes.
to talk about her book, Don't Die with the Music Still in You. It's a good book. Did you read that one? It's a good book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to get, there's so many of them, which is a
Yeah.
good thing. So my goal is to finish all of them in this lifetime.
Yes. So, so I was interviewing her. So I had her contact information after Wayne passed away, and I emailed her and I said, Serena, this is Karen. Karen Noe. I just interviewed you on the Angel Quest show. I'm so sorry to hear about your dad. Please know he truly is okay. We would want you to be too. Ask him to come to you in a dream and to wake you up after the dream so that you remember it. Ask exactly what I said before. Ask him to give you a without a doubt sign to let you know he's with you. And then it's important to be patient and wait. And these types of things will happen when you least expect it. And then I ended it with, I'd love to send you a copy of my book, Your Life After Their Death. I had just finished it at that time. With pretty much, it's everything I've learned, I told her, all the years of doing mediumship, and how you could connect with him yourself. And if you're interested, I'd love to send you a copy. And that was it. Within 5 minutes, I received an email back from Serena saying she would love a copy of my book. And thank you very much, and so forth. And I sent it to her. I was ready to connect. Did I tell you I didn't know him? I was a huge fan. I did say that, right? Sometimes
Yeah, you didn't personally know him,
I did
which
personally know him.
which adds so much credibility to it that you didn't have that
No,
relationship at all. So yeah.
I was a huge fan and a fellow Hay House author. I would go to his workshops, but I didn't know him personally. So I was scheduled to speak a few weeks after sending her the book at an I Can Do It event for Hay House in Florida. It was in Orlando, and they were going to be doing a tribute to Dr. Dyer a day before I was ready to speak. So I was there. They sent me there a day before, so that I could attend the tribute to Dr. Dyer. And I'm sitting on this bus for the Hay House authors as well as Wayne Dyer's family. And as I'm sitting on the bus, this is my personality. I'm like, oh my goodness, all my favorite authors are on this bus. I really have to, you'll hear the story. And there was one seat that was available, and it happened to be next to me. And in walks Serena Dyer. She sits down next to me. And I said, Serena, I'm so sorry to hear about your dad. My name's Karen Noe. She goes, oh, Karen, I just got your book. Thank you so much. I said, oh, you're welcome. And I reiterated what I said, about asking for the signs and so forth. And that pretty much was it. That was it. I said, did you get any signs? And she said, yeah, her sister Sage had a very profound dream that she dreamt of her dad. And in the dream, she hugged her dad and she felt his hairy arms.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's a real visitation. That's not a dream from your subconscious. There's a difference. A dream from your subconscious may be scary, how they pass. They wouldn't come through that. A real visitation, you would actually maybe feel them, or you would know without a doubt it was really them. So I said, yes, that's a real visitation. That was it. We went to the conference, the tribute. And as we came off the bus, after we went to the tribute, I was walking to the bus, and I'm ready to walk onto the bus. And I see Reed Tracy, the CEO of Hay House. I see all of my favorite authors again. I see Wayne Dyer's family, and going onto the bus. And I said, I'm not going there. I'm not going on the bus. I am so insignificant. You can hear how I talk throughout this whole interview, right? I'm insignificant. I'm not going on that bus. I'm going to walk to the hotel room. And I'm walking to the bus, and I said, I'm so insignificant. I'm so insignificant. And that's when I heard him for the first time. And he said, get out of your own way. Get out of your own way. And he yelled. And I said, Wayne, is that really you? I said, if it's you, you have to give me a without a doubt sign to let me know that it's really you. And I continued to walk. And I said, how may I serve? And he said, you're already serving. I said, fine. How may I serve more? I continued to walk to the hotel room. As I got to the hotel room, there was something very itchy that had somehow attached itself to my shirt. And I reached in to get it. And there was a sticker that was not there before.
Hmm.
I wish I had it now. I could show you it. I don't have it on me, but it was the letters W-E on it.
Wow.
And I heard him, and he said, "Is that good enough?" And I thought at that time it meant Wayne, first letter, last letter of his
Right.
name.
Right.
And I said, "Oh my gosh, that's so amazing. Thank you so much for coming to me." And little did I know it was so much more than that. And we could get into what that is in a minute. But since then, after that event, then all of his family, they contacted me and they came to see me. And I don't want to keep talking. I know you have something.
No, no, we love hearing anything, Wayne. I had something similar where I was, interested in writing a book, and right after his passing, he kind of came to me and he says, "I'm going to help you," and I'm like, this is all, I'm just imagining this. Who am I to ever hear a word from this man? Like, I'm just a pauper. Here's the king coming to me. And he said, "No, I'm going to help you. And I'm going to have a lot of people that I know helping you with this." And sure enough, I met a lot of people that he was behind their books and getting, their books out there within my book, from Anita Marjani's endorsement to someone who wrote my foreword. So the books that you see, the great books, he was very much behind, and he was a champion and a cheerleader for those who were pure of service, who needed that extra kick, And so I think they're uniformal to the way that they were in this life in many ways. Like, he really believed in those who were about service, who might have just needed that extra push, but to remember, like, we're a big deal and not a big deal at the same time. Like, have that kind of balance, but also to know, like, hey, if not you, then who? And we all have this divine spark, and no one's better
That's
or
it.
worse. We're all.
Right.
It's different how we see it on a human level from the spiritual sense.
Yes. I remember when this started happening, I said to him, "Why did you choose me?" And he
Right.
said, "Why did you choose me?" And I said, "Okay, all right."
You had a good sense of humor, certainly.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
eventually he joined, he came through loud and clear for his family. His wife, Marceline,
Hmm.
Sage came from Manhattan. Marceline, Serena, and Sky came from Florida. I'm in New
Right.
Jersey.
Right.
And here I am, insecure Karen. I'm saying, "Oh my God, Wayne, you better come through."
Right. Right.
I've been
Right.
doing this for years, but I've never done it for Wayne Dyer. And I said, "You
Right.
better come through." And I went to walk my dog, and I'm yelling at him in my mind. And he said,
What did I get myself into? I have these people booking plane tickets, and
"Yes." And
in the right in the public eye, and this could like make or break. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so he came through the first time again after I got home, and I'm walking my dog, and he came through, and he was so excited to talk about the afterlife, and
Right.
so excited to talk about the we consciousness,
Hmm.
which is what was on my sticker, the WE.
Wow.
It's we consciousness is the interconnectivity of everyone and everything, and whatever we do to ourselves or another, it affects everybody. And he said he was going to be joining forces with a group consciousness called the We Guides.
Hmm.
When he came through in that way, it's similar to Esther Hicks.
Hmm.
She channels Abraham. But when he came through with the We Guides, it would be hard to differentiate him from everyone else. It would be ascended masters, angels, Saint
Hmm.
Francis of Assisi, and himself, and they were going to give me 33 concepts of the We consciousness, how to raise the vibration of the planet. But he said he was also going to be coming through, which I said, "You better come through singularly for your
On an
family." I
individual basis. Yeah.
you, yes, and he did. He came through loud and clearly for them.
Right.
If I may,
I think they need to, anyone kind of needs to know the evidential piece, the
absolutely,
trust factor.
yes,
It kind of allows people to understand
yeah,
this is coming from a pure connected place.
correct,
We're hitting on versus our own stuff. But
exactly,
that's, an amazing parallel too with you and Wayne. I know he had a profound connection with St. Francis of Assisi
yeah,
that was so
exactly.
strong in his work, and you with your transformative experience, which, by the way, coincides. 30 years ago this month, I had my NDE, September of
Oh,
1993. I was just 3 years old.
oh
So
my
we have this 30-year thing going on. So
God.
no coincidences.
And you're
When
33?
I had my NDE at just the age of 3 years old, September of 1993. This is my
Wow.
30th anniversary,
Amazing.
which looking back at 30 years, it feels like a day. It doesn't feel like any time has passed, and there is no time, which is
That's it.
the
Right.
crazy part. But I love the title of your book. I wanted to talk about your life after their death, because I think there's a lot of fixation on what happens when our loved ones dies. And I
Yeah.
know maybe that's something that we could elaborate on, but I think what happens is when people get so stricken by grief, that person passes away and so do you. And in many ways, and it's
Yeah.
hard to live a life. There's multiple losses that could happen with that loved one passes. And so how do people claim back their lives after their loved one's death? Like, what are some of the pillars of that particular book that we'd like to share if you can?
Well, I teach people how to heal after the loss. There's different techniques. I've been doing this for many years. When somebody comes to my office, I don't just give a reading, although their loved ones do come through. That's what they want the
Yeah.
most. But the deceased loved one, again, I don't like the word deceased, but the one who's left their physical body truly is in a state of complete peace and bliss. It's the living loved one who is not. So when the deceased comes through, they're giving messages that only the living loved one would know. So that's bringing them peace. But how do they deal with the energy? In the book, I talk about tapping, EFT. That's amazing. I think number one thing that helps people to heal is doing that. For those who don't know what that is, we have energy points, acupuncture points on our body that correspond to grief or anger or negative feelings. And if you tap on those points as you're experiencing the emotion, the energy, because everything, you're a mind, body, spirit. You're not just the body. You're not just spirit. You're everything at once. So you could heal the body by going to an MD. You could heal your mind by going to a therapist, and that's wonderful. But also you need to heal the energy within you too. Energy is real. So when you're doing the tapping, you're bringing up the emotion. The emotion is stored in the different acupuncture points. You're tapping on that, and it moves, and it's amazing. Some people told me, I've heard, I can't say it on this show, but this SH really works. This really.
Oh, you can. I don't know.
Yeah.
We're from New York here.
Right.
My only barrier would be YouTube, but it's all good.
I just
But
said it.
tapping is so profound. I've been doing it for years myself, and I think it's also getting creative with it, right? You don't just have to tap one spot. You really have to go in to one part of your body and do a scan that may feel a little bit heavy and just lean into it. Like, don't be afraid to tap it where you feel a little bit of discomfort, because that will release, a lot of that stagnant energy.
Yeah.
And you spoke about movement. It's true. Bruce Lee would say, be like water. What happens is when people are backed up, they're like stale body of water, and tapping just allows this dam to like get out of the way and for this flow of water to happen. So yeah, it's
it
beautiful
moves the energy. It really does. And I have found when I work with people to do tapping, when it really works is when they experience the emotion. If they're just tapping and saying, I am so upset, I cannot take it, and they're not using the emotion,
Right.
the energy is not going to those points, and it's not working. So it's just like, as I said before, about embracing your emotion. You have to experience the emotion to tap on it. That's when you tap on it, it really does work. Also in the book, I talk about other healing modalities, Ho'oponopono, Reiki, energy healing, all sorts of things, how to connect with them yourself, and so forth. Ask them to come to you in a dream, praying, meditating, all of that. And I talk about that in Your Life After Their Death.
I think that's wonderful, because to me, at least, I think grief is very much a human thing, but it's not as much of a soul thing. The soul knows there's continuity, but the human part of us, that part of us grieves. And so it's, again, just people tapping into that inner light with them, allowing that to illuminate the darkness that they walked into, and hopefully allowing themselves to come out transformed. Because I do believe grief is transformation, and I'm sure you've seen this in your practice, where maybe someone is not into this, all of a sudden they lose a loved one. And from that loss, it's like they have this expanded awareness on the afterlife. They connect to their loved ones, whether that be a shared death experience, that they have that directly, or just indirectly, that puts them on a whole different pathway. And it's just a shake-up period of the soul to really see things in a different way, that if we were just so comfortable, we wouldn't change. So it has that ability long term, but certainly hurts in the moment.
They become more spiritual, who they really are anyway, as we're spiritual beings having a human experience. It's not the other way around. So they remember who they are when this happens.
Yeah.
And,
That's profound.
yeah.
Now, I've heard you use the term consciousness a lot, and certainly we know what that means. But for viewers, what does consciousness? It's hard to describe. I've asked a lot of my.
Yeah.
It's hard. It really works you, but in your words, not like, how would you describe consciousness to you? Like, what is that?
It's what really is, what's real, I guess. The conscious, who we really are.
Yeah. Like I call it the eternal observer of life. This
I like that. That's good.
Of life. But a lot of the times it's like, we see, your book is called We Consciousness, and many times we see things through this me consciousness, which is the observer's focused on the me, and that's the identity, versus the we, it's focused beyond the me and connected. Now, if you look at the world at large, and not just in our country, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of people who, you've seen the transformation from the genesis of your work to now. But also, we have to be very honest that there's a great deal of divisiveness still going on in partisanship. And I grew up in the 90s. I never remembered life anywhere near like this, where all of a sudden we feel like one big gang territory here in the United States, with there's two gangs and they're fighting, and two siblings that are fighting. So what's the task at hand that we are facing, and how could we move the needle to more progress? Because it seems like right now we're really moving backwards and forwards at times. It's kind of strange,
It's very important to remember who we are, which is only love. And
you say that one more time. That's
we're only love.
We are only. That is profound. And when guests say profound things, I like to say it one more time, because it's so important to hear that. We are love. Yeah.
That's all we are. And when we're anything but that, it's just an illusion. So we have to remember that and try to see through the other person's eyes. You may not agree with what they're saying. And I certainly don't agree with what they're doing or saying. But that's not the way to bring peace in the world and in our lives. For example, I'm a vegan.
Yes.
Okay. When I had that experience with the light, I couldn't eat animals anymore because I felt the pain of the animals. And I assure you, if everybody felt that, they would no longer eat meat. But for me to go and screaming and yelling, I've seen that from different organizations, say, throwing pies at people and so forth. I love people. I love animals. I love everybody. And that's not the way to do it. So to do it is to gradually plant a seed and teach people. And what I end up saying when I speak to large groups is, I'm not asking you that if there's a whole group of people, chances are there's maybe one vegan, maybe two. I taught at Omega a couple of weeks ago, and in the large room, there were 2 vegans, and myself was one of them. So I know that. So how could I judge everybody? I can't judge anybody. I'm not a judge. But I say, I know I'm not asking you to become a vegan, but I know you could do one thing. How about one day a week or one meal a week, you eat a plant-based diet? And in so doing, you'd be saving one animal's life each time you do that. And I know you could do that. And everybody's like, yeah, we could do that. So when I say that, I'm saying it is, you could look at the other side lovingly. You may not agree with what they're saying or doing, but try to see through their eyes where they're coming from. Doesn't mean you agree with what they're saying, right?
Definitely not. Yeah.
No, at all. But what I'm saying is, to bring peace is you do it in a loving, peaceful way. You have to become peace to increase peace in the world. You can't yell and scream at someone, right? We can't do that. So we have to try to focus on solutions rather than the problems.
Which is a big Wayne Dyer. And he had a book called there's a solution to your every problem, something like that.
And I think that was the book about St. Francis, wasn't it? I believe.
Yeah, kind of like that. It had like kind of a unique covers. Like I have it, in my apartment, but it's true with everything that we're going through. There is a way, certainly even death.
Yeah, we can't fight against somebody and create peace. We have to sit down and try to understand why are they saying this? I don't understand some of these things. And I'm sure you're on the same page with the things you don't understand. I don't understand it. I don't.
No, I mean,
where are they coming from? Why? Yeah. Right?
I think yes, to a degree, but then sometimes it's taking the intellect, because some things we just can't understand.
No.
Insanity, you can't understand that. Not to say, but to some degree, yeah. But I think it's finding the, looking at the commonalities that you may share with that person, recognizing that, as Wayne would say, when you squeeze out the orange, you get orange juice. When you squeeze out each and every one of us, all of the big differences go away, and you see it's really from the same file. It's from the same source. Now, oneness does not mean sameness. We will be different in ways, but we find that commonality. And I think really right now there is a problem, but people need to tap into their spirituality. That's the solution for the problem. And the issue is they're tapping into something other than that, be it religion that's not rooted in spirituality, or cult-like thinking. I don't know. There's a lot going on. This is a lot of layers. I don't want to go too down that rabbit hole.
I know.
But the we consciousness is this light that because again, to really solve a problem, you have to be willing to dig your sleeves up and to recognize what you're facing, while identifying with what is versus what's the temporary challenge at hand.
And yes. And let me just go back a little bit. If somebody is really focused on something we don't agree with, they're never going to listen to us if we're yelling and screaming, and they won't.
Right.
So if you listen to them, and then you say, oh, and then you tell them your point of view, you can see if they listen or not, it's okay. But you're open. When you turn on the light, the darkness goes away.
Yeah. Well, we say a term in the English language called understand.
Yes.
Well, you put yourself under the person doesn't mean overstand. It means understand. And when I think of the God lens, it's you look up at awe and curiosity, not down in judgment. So, and then when you come from that framework, you're able to see there's a lot more light in that person, or you're able to have compassion to maybe some of the dark areas that, are pulling them away from the light. I've had experiences where I've had people that I just could not stand on a human level. But when I was connected deeply to this inner light, I would start to see them through that lens. And I started to see a beautiful part. I felt more comfortable in their presence. And I was able to be compassionate to some of the anger is just hurt people. So I think a lot of it has to do with us checking into our light. And when we do that, we could be curious to find it, in the darkest of places too.
Exactly. And when you went through the life review, were you able to see through the other person's, did you see through the other person's eyes, that everybody that you encountered in your life? But you were only 3. But I hear that a lot, people who've had near-death experiences, that they see how they affected people.
Yes, but what I want to preface is
3 years old.
It's not the matter of the years of your life, but the life in your years. I firmly believe that. So when I was just 3 years old, it felt like in many ways I was on the planet for a day, but also millions of years. Time is a funny thing, but it transcended this lifetime. It was in other lifetimes, but that's, for, which is rare. You would feel like you would see that through more in near-death experiencers, past life, and it does happen, but not as much. Mostly it's just this life, and that's okay. Now, I know a lot of my viewers are curious what the other side is about, where, from your readings, like where our loved ones do go. Do you have any, like, I know you deal with this all the time, like from your years of work, do you have like a cumulative understanding a little bit with the heavenly realm and what it's about, or it's still uncertain, maybe, or
Well,
ambiguity to it?
I can only tell you through the messages that I receive, but the people retain the same personality as they had when they were here. So if they were loud, they're still loud. If they were quiet, they're still. I think they do this so that the living loved one knows it's really them. They can be wherever they want to be with just a thought. So if they want to be in Texas, they're in Texas. If they want to be on the moon, they could be on the moon, but just a thought, because they don't have the physical body that prevents them from being there. They're coming from a place of complete love and peace. They're not, if they were angry, they often, when they come through, say, I did this, for example, I hit you over the head with a mirror. I'm so sorry. Because they're able to see through the loved one's eyes. I shouldn't have done that. It's not that through eternity that they're going to be in hell or anything like that. It's this higher knowing, seeing the bigger perspective and so forth. People ask me, what do they do all day? What do they do all day?
Right.
I don't know what they do all day. I can only tell you what they do when they come in during the appointment, and they could be with you whenever they so desire. They can travel to wherever they wish, to be. It depends on the person's level of consciousness, as we said before.
Yes.
So if they're in a higher level of consciousness when they left the physical plane, they're growing, they're evolving. Everybody's growing and evolving, but they're on a higher, more loving, peaceful, maybe trying to help the whole world. And let's talk about this. We're not the only planet that has life on it. We know that, right?
Yeah.
So,
Despite attempts to keep that hidden.
I'd love to talk about that.
This show is yours,
right?
Is that
Yeah.
So that's something that you really believe in and connect to, life on other planes. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. To look up in the sky, to think that we're the only planet that has life, maybe life as we know it. But I only know from my experience. And one day, many years ago, I was meditating after that experience with the light, and I saw this being, a glowing being with big eyes, what you hear, aliens. And I hate that word aliens, because they're not alien. They're part of who we are.
Right.
She came through, and it was the most loving, peaceful experience that I've ever encountered. And I said, who are you? And do you know what she said? I am you.
I am you.
Yeah. And I said, really? But that shows you we're all one. We are all one. Now
it reminds me of when, I'm sorry, did you have, had?
I'd love to hear what you say.
It reminds me of my NDE when I saw my spirit guides on a direct basis. They were the most magnificent, beautiful being. I don't have words to describe it, but in the way, what I felt like is, imagine at the time you have this big Hollywood celebrity crush and you put them on this pedestal and you're like, no way would that person ever look at me. And imagine that person had the same feeling towards you that you had, that same level of love and of interest, of respect, of admiration. And that's what it's like over there. It's so different than this dog-eat-dog world and capitalistic society, the me versus, everyone else. The me works with the we on the other side. It's not, over the we. It works with it. So when you put someone down, you're not climbing the ladder, you're stepping down. Climbing the ladder is everyone elevated. But that is a fascinating story, because I don't hear mediums all the time connecting. It's mostly on the level of, loved ones on their side. So I've always been curious if they also connect to other beings. That's fascinating.
Oh my gosh. And I'm so fascinated. I don't know what it is. One day I'll get to the root of it.
Right.
I don't know. There's a wonderful new book out, UFO of God. Did you hear
UFO of God? I've never heard of it. No.
And that's the only one that attracted me, because you hear these books are talking about the scariness and the abductions. That I get so angry. I'm like, they're not all that way. I don't know how I know. I just know. My family, they laugh at me. I'm like, I know. I don't know how I know. I just know that.
Right.
It's just like people. They're good and bad to everything. So being that I experience, and I feel that she's with me all the time, is loving and positive. And they're actually here to make a difference in the world. to create
Right.
peace in this world so that we don't harm our planet.
Right. I think Spielberg was probably the only one who was somewhat on point with ET to a degree, like a friendly,
Yeah.
loving kind of person. But again, Hollywood will fearmonger, and that will sell. And
Yeah.
it's not rooted in reality. It's very distorted from the actual facts that we've gotten through people who have connected to this. But it certainly has gotten a lot of traction. I think the number one visited website is UFO based.
Oh,
You know,
really?
or top there. Yes. So it really is a big draw of interest. And I think people just need to understand what they're about and what they're not, and to just debunk the cultural myths, really.
I want to say something too from something that I just know. They don't need it UFOs. Let's just say that they come as beings of light. They're here as light. They come, and I've seen.
Right.
I've
The terms that we have of it are just
UFO. You
so,
don't need a physical. Like that's what we as human beings we think you need a flying saucer or a UFO to come. They
right.
could just be just as our deceased loved ones can be wherever
Right.
they want to be at any
Yeah.
planet that they
Yeah.
wish to be. And the ones that I experienced are very loving and positive. But there are, and I've read, because I'm so fascinated, I have to find out more. But I get so frustrated when I hear the negativity and, oh, it's so scary, and they abducted me, and it was time that I didn't know. 3 hours passed, and I came back, and it's not what I experienced at all. And
No.
continual. I feel them, in addition to angels, in addition to Wayne Dyer and the we consciousness, and they're part of the we consciousness because we're all one. It's
We're
not
all
just
connected.
humans.
Yeah.
It's not just humans. It's also people from higher celestial beings from other dimensions. There's the animals as well, and nature as well as human beings.
Yeah. And I know often my quarterback of the New York Jets is called an alien because of his arm and his incredible abilities, but he had a UFO experience that he just disclosed on HBO's Hard Knocks, Aaron Rodgers.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so what I love is
How
now
did
as
you feel? Go ahead. Okay.
Aaron Rodgers, who's
Uh-huh.
making his debut tonight on my New York Jets, when he was having his draft night around that time, he was in New Jersey. This is probably talking around 20 years ago, maybe a little bit less. And he had this profound UFO experience that he was able to discuss on HBO's Hard Knocks. And I give Aaron a lot of credit because there's a perception of an athlete, and obviously that's changed with mental health awareness, with a lot of athletes coming forward with it. But to have just this buffalo wings and chicken wings and beer, and all of a sudden this guy talking about higher consciousness is
What
you
would
know
he say? And I'm curious. What did he say?
is yeah, I mean, Aaron just talked about his profound experience in the night sky that he had, and there was a good friend of his, like a teammate of his next to him. They both experienced the same exact thing the next day, and I think a power plant blew up or something like that, which UFOs often, not UFOs, these higher luminary beings often
Right? Yep. They're
get on. So
Yep, yep.
if listeners are, and again, I don't work for HBO, I'm not on Hard Knocks, but do check out Aaron's UFO descriptive, which he's told before, but now on the scene of Hard Knocks, HBO, which everyone is watching, I think was pretty daring on his end to be able to do that in his position. So I validate him for
Wow.
that. Makes me
Wow.
like him even that much more. I know he was our Messiah, but now he's our Lord and Savior. No question.
That's amazing. Thank you for that. And my boyfriend's
Yeah.
such a Jets fan. I have to tell him we're watching together tonight.
Let him know. Yeah, I'm a
Absolutely.
diehard since a young boy.
Wow.
We're about to wrap up, but I just had some, just other last points that you might have had from, we consciousness or your work. Certainly, there's a lot of people looking for solutions to their problems, and I think that keeps us going. But any things else that you would like to hear, as well as what keeps you, going? I know you mentioned you have another book coming out. You're like Wayne Dyer itself. Like you're popping these things out like candy. Like how do you what's your why in what you do? Like
Oh my
what's
gosh.
your why?
Whenever something excites me and I see when I teach classes at my center, I have a center in Ramsey, now I moved to Waldwood, New Jersey now. I see what people love and myself, right now I'm talking about how our thoughts create our reality. as I stated before, we're vibrational beings. Whatever we're thinking and feeling, we're creating. So we have to think on a higher level of consciousness. If we think more loving, positive, thoughts, will create more loving, positive things in our life and in the world. And we can make a difference. Yes, we can, because we're all connected. And if you make a difference, everyone's going to be in a better state of consciousness. So yes, we can make a difference in the world. You can, I can, we all can.
We all can. And what I love about you is what I love about Wayne is you just never knew what next was coming because you're tuned in. And when you're tuned in, it's not stagnant. It's always open-ended to evolve, to change, to morph into something else. And I find that fascinating. With every great spiritual teacher, when they're connected, there's always something new to tap into. They're a forever student. People see them as teachers, but to me, the greatest teachers are the greatest students. And you're a wonderful teacher and student. Now, Karen, if people are interested in purchasing your books or workshops, I know the readings are booked, rightfully so. When you're good, they know how to find you. But for other stuff, where could people find you? And I know I just purchased We Consciousness, which is coming in the mail soon, which I'm so excited to read. But where could people find any of your great books and upcoming events at?
Well, you could look at any major bookstore, or you could go on Amazon. That's the easiest way. You go to my website at KarenNoe.com. That's KarenNoe.com. And you'll see all my classes and my books and other things as well.
And you're also on Instagram, which I'm a big fan. You have great posts too, so follow her on Instagram too. So Karen Noe, my neighbor, New Jersey, thank you for coming on. You're welcome back anytime. And most importantly, thank you for coming out, doing the work that you do, change the lives that you're impacting, and being just so gracious about it, just a pure servant, but someone who I see as just a brilliant luminary here who's changing the world. So couldn't be more humbled to be in your presence today.
Thank you so much. It's mutual. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you for listening to my interview with Karen Noe. She tapped into so many areas from, her books to life after death, to life after their death, to her connection with the late Dr. Wayne Dyer, to her mediumship work, to her intuitive capabilities. And her personal stories. So I loved every word that Karen had to say, and she is a welcome guest at any time. For viewers tuning in, thank you for listening. I hope and I know you will be getting a lot of information from this. Make sure you subscribe. We're available on all platforms. This way you can stay up to date to new information's coming away to help you continually ascend the ladder of wisdom and grow every day in every way. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you soon. Be well.